Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. My name is Lauren Lewis, and I am an Impact Austin member, class of 2020, and I'm very excited to be your MC for this event today, as I'm joined by two really amazing women, Lillian Gray, who is an Impact Austin board member and the Community Relations Manager at Bank of America, as well as Heather Venard, who's the Communications and Community Relations Manager at Silicon Labs. And I actually had the pleasure of working with Heather earlier this year during Impact Austin's Discovery Days. So if you missed her and some other exceptional women on the CSR panel that we had, that's recorded and on the Impact Austin website. I highly recommend checking that one out. It was super informational. It was great. And for those of you who might be new to Impact Austin or unfamiliar altogether, we're a women's collective giving circle focused on funding Central Texas nonprofits. Since Impact Austin was founded 18 years ago, we've invested over $7.6 million into the Austin community through 99 high impact grants. And in November, we'll be awarding a total of $226,200 in grants in two focus areas, which are equity and health and well-being. So if you're interested in learning more about Impact Austin or getting involved, please visit impactaustin.org and reach out. We'll be happy to answer any questions there. Today, we have the pleasure of learning from Lillian and Heather, who are both dedicated to strengthening our community in both their professional and personal lives. So as we chat today, if you have additional questions, feel free to throw them in the chat and we'll have some time for Q&A at the end of this. And of course, you're not here to listen to me, so I'd like to turn it over to Lillian and Heather so they can both introduce themselves, and then we can get into some of the questions that we have. So Lillian, do you want to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Let me unmute myself first. That would be good. As Lauren said, my name is Lillian Gray. I'm the Community Relations Manager at Bank of America for the Austin market. In that position, I work in partnership with the Bank of America Charitable Foundation to work on our philanthropic investments locally, also the deployment of national programs locally, and building partnerships and collaborations with our different community and nonprofit partners. And I'm very involved in the community. It's a big passion of mine. I'm a proud Impact Austin class of 2019 member. This is my first year as a board member, so I'm really excited and thrilled to be able to serve the organization that way. And I'm also on the boards of Comi Madre and Cash the Next, and I recently completed a term with Wayside Schools. So I'm very passionate about education, as you can tell. So I'll pass that to Heather.
Thanks, Lillian. I am so thrilled to be here today with Impact Austin and also with Lillian. My name is Heather Venard. I am the Communications and Community Relations Manager at Silicon Labs. If you don't know Silicon Labs, we are a small semiconductor company in Austin, Texas that focuses on the Internet of Things and is the really cool chip that's out of your products. Like if you've got a Nest home thermostat, if you've got an Alexa, we're in there. So we do some really cool work. What I'm really proud of is the fact that we have a deep commitment to the community. And we give back 1% of our profits to communities around the world every year. And we have a strong focus on STEM education for underrepresented and underserved middle and high school youth to build a more diverse and equitable STEM pipeline. I have the really cool job of being able to manage all of those programs globally, over 20 global sites, and to be able to personally get involved in our matching gifts, corporate grants, volunteering, executive board service, all of these programs that we do. I'm also, as Lillian gave it a great example, super passionate about getting involved in the community in my personal time. I've been a long-term board member now of Creative Action for about 6 years. I was board chair actually of Creative Action up until the summer of last year. I just joined the National Board of Philanthropy, which I'm incredibly excited about. And I just really believe in everyone getting involved in their community. And we're going to talk about that in a sec. And on a personal note, I'm thrilled to be here with Lillian. Lillian is a friend of mine, a dear friend of mine. We worked together back in another life of mine over when I was at Merrill Lynch, Bank of America. And that's what I love about this Austin community, that we constantly reconnect with each other. We bring each other into cool opportunities. So huge thank you to Lillian. And I've got some other friends on the phone like Linda Lim Yang, who made this connection happen. So I really wanted to thank you all, and I'm glad to be here today.
I'm glad to be here with you, Heather.
Hey, friend.
Well, thank you both again for being here. I think so many people on this call are really passionate about getting involved and supporting the local community and beyond. But getting started can be a little overwhelming, and making donations is obviously a great start. But I know both of you are really passionate about going beyond the check. So could you kind of give an idea of what that means and maybe some advice on getting started there?
Sure. I want to kick it off maybe with like a concept, and then Lillian, I want to pass over to you to get your input on this. Had a conversation 6 months, a year ago with I Live Here, I Give Here, which is another great organization in Austin. And they were chatting about the fact that we say a lot of times time, talent, and treasure. So when you're thinking about going beyond the paycheck, you're thinking about how can I give my time, which is usually volunteering? How can I give my treasure, which is donating, right? And how can I give my talent? That usually means skills based. And how can I take my skills and have them help the community through nonprofit work? But there's two other really cool ideas that they shared with me, and I've been really thinking about them over the past year. And that is testimonial and ties. So when you're thinking about getting involved in the community, yes, it's the money that you can give. Yes, it's going to volunteer for an organization. Yes, it's taking your skill set and applying it to an organization. But it's also doing two other things. It's testimonials, talking about the causes that you're passionate about, telling your friends, telling your family, telling your neighbors, telling your colleagues, getting the word out. That's your testimonial. And then ties, thinking of the ways in which you can actually make connections between a cause you care about, their infrastructure, and additional resources in the community. So maybe like your company has a program, or a nonprofit is looking for assistance in a certain area, and then, oh, wow, somebody who can meet that need. So I really encourage us all to think about looking at your entire skill set, your network, your life, and seeing how you can make an impact on nonprofits. So that's where I wanted to start it. But Lillian, I want to get your thoughts on this.
Absolutely. And Heather, those are all amazing points. And I completely agree with you. And I wanted to emphasize, I think that the opportunity to align your community involvement to things that you're interested in and that things that you're passionate about really offers a really unique opportunity to be involved in driving positive change in your communities. So I think that there may be many opportunities to get involved. And I think sometimes when we're starting our journey, it's difficult to figure out which way to go. I would say that think about the things that you're genuinely and passionately interested in. Use that as your North Star. Think about the issues in the community that you particularly connect to and that you'd like to learn more. One thing that I've learned through my experiences at Impact Austin and other organizations is that they offer such a great way to connect with these issues, connect with the people that you serve through volunteerism and engagement. And from there, you can develop so many skills, but also lend the talents that you already have in a very unique, impactful way. I think that there's something like connecting with the people that you wish to serve and being connected to issues that you like to see solved. And, an organization like Impact Austin offers such a unique opportunity to offer a framework. If you're new to philanthropy, you'll have people that can talk with you through the process, who can offer their experiences and expertise. But if you are very experienced in philanthropy and you have already served on boards, you still have that community to draw upon to really dig deep and delve deeply into issues that you care about. So I can't say enough things about how that involvement beyond the check really informs the way in which you want to drive positive impact in the community. So.
Yeah, I think it's great. You have more at your fingertips, right? Like you have more in like your philanthropic arsenal, right? That sometimes you realize, and sometimes it's just taking that step back and saying, I love your point about passion. It's so important because when we're really passionate about something, we tend to do more in that space. Absolutely. And your passion is massive for that.
Thank you. No, I definitely believe that, and something that I wanted to share with you all, and so do you. So I think that this is a great example of how to get even more involved and drive positive change.
For sure.
So at these words that you're throwing around of time, talent, treasure, testimonials, passion, that to me screams board service, of course. And I know that's something that we've talked pretty extensively about as we've prepped for this and just in general. What can you guys kind of go into what is board service, why it's so important, not just for the volunteer, also for the nonprofit, and kind of what that relationship looks like to you?
Absolutely. And if you'd like, Heather, I can kick it off and talk a little bit about board service. And of course, I'm a proud member of the board of Impact Austin. And I would say that my participation in boards started really as volunteers with each of these organizations. I don't think I've ever gone from not knowing an organization or not meeting the people they serve, not connecting to other volunteers first before taking that step. It doesn't mean that it can't happen. And I wouldn't want to discourage anyone from taking that step, especially if it's an issue that you are passionate about. However, for me, it really started through volunteerism and community engagement and really finding out more about the different organizations, who they work with and who they serve and what they stand for. And I think as I see the board of directors role as an extension of that journey that you start as a volunteer, at least that has been the case for me, where it's really been an amazing opportunity to not only work with the people that the organization serve or serve the mission of the organization, but also be able to think about the strategy that the organization is taking, think about how they are solving different issues in the community, think about how they are distributing their funds and their resources. And the board of directors is a resource as well. The people and the time that a board of directors shares with an organization and with the community are pretty key. And I think that for me has been a great opportunity also to delve deeper into all of these issues that I'm concerned about and that I would like to learn more about. I've learned tremendously from my fellow board members. That has been an education that I do not think there could have been enough money for me to go somewhere and learn this. I'm so grateful to my Impact Austin board members, to my board members at Con Mi Madre, at Catch the Next, at Wayside Schools, because I learned so much about issues that I care deeply about. But I think I encourage you to start as a volunteer and get to know the organization well, get to know who they serve, get to learn about their mission, then investigate ways in which your specific skill set can be a match for that organization. But also think about skill sets that you may not have that you like to develop, and you have people on that board that can help you in that journey too. So with that, I'll pass it to Heather.
Yeah, no, I love it. You teed up so many of these really important concepts, Lillian. I love this bridge that you're creating between volunteering, like involvement in a cause, and like ways to get your feet wet, right? Like volunteering and starting to get more involved with the organization. And then you kind of touched about like the things that you can learn from that experience. It's something that at Silicon Labs, we are really passionate about, is helping our employees get active in board service. And we actually have a board service program that allows our employees to kind of get onboarded and have a grant associated with their participation. But what I always say to any employee, they come to me and they say, "Oh, I want to join a board. I'm not sure where to start." And volunteering is one of the first things I say, so like or chair like committee work. Mm-hmm. Then I always ask 3 questions. And I think you, Lillian, you just circled around a lot of these. What are you passionate about? That's got to be number 1. Then what do you want to give? So that can be time, talent, treasure, testimonial, and ties, right? But it can also be thinking about what is the thing that maybe you do in your day job or like in your daily life, or sometimes maybe a skill that you haven't been able to use recently, where you could go ahead and say, like, I had an employee who was like, "Well, I'm an engineer, but I also have an MBA." I'm like, okay, first of all, wow. Second of all, you have an MBA. He's like, "But I don't get to use it." I'm like, well, then let's find you a board service opportunity where you're passionate about the cause. And then you can take that MBA and you can apply it and you can work in that space. So then you see where the inverse starts to happen. It's the third question I ask. What do you want to get out of it? And that is a completely valid question to ask yourself at board service. It is not, it's not selfish, right? Like it's critical because you're going to develop through board service. Anytime you get more involved with a nonprofit, like Lillian, I'm sure like in your experiences, like you just called out your experience with Impact Austin and learning from, but I'm sure there's skills that your board service, like Columbia Moderator as well, that you have gained from doing that work, right?
Absolutely. And I would say that that has been such a critical part of my experience.
Right.
And you're right, it's not selfish at all. I think in many ways you're thinking about how you can best contribute to an organization. You're thinking of the things that you would like to know better, be better at, do better, and how that the board of directors can be such a great resource for you as well to develop. And I think that when we're thinking long term and the kind of impact we can have in our communities long term, you have to think about developing yourself in a way that can be where you can be a resource to the organizations that you care about. And you have to think about developing yourself in that way, the same way that you think about it at work. We're always at work trying to gain new skills and trying to gain expertise, trying to answer questions that we have. That's, for me, a lot of it was answering questions that I had and trying to figure out how to do certain things and how to go about it. And I was very lucky that I had organizations where I could explore that, and board members that were really generous in offering information, offering resources. And I think at the end of the day, you just want to be a better citizen of your community and be able to be of use to the organizations that you care about. So.
Agreed.
That's great. And Lillian, I want to switch gears just a little bit as you're a recent new board member to Impact Austin. And I'd love to hear just a little bit about your journey to Impact Austin and kind of what steps you took to joining the board from volunteering on.
Absolutely. And it's such an honor to be a part of the Impact Austin board. And I just got started. So right now I'm doing a lot of learning about the different committees and the different resources that we have available in the community. For me, I was very attracted to collective giving, and I didn't know much about it at all. I was interested in the concept of, getting a group of women together that felt very strongly about having an impact and how they could do so together. And in joining, what I have found, it's a phenomenal community of people with different interests and levels of expertise in different things and different things that they're passionate about. With Impact Austin, I also think that for many of my friends who have joined recently, it has been a great introduction to philanthropy in general. How do you identify the sectors where help is needed? How do you do research on the different organizations that are available? What kind of resources that you have out there? How can you be a good steward of your treasure? You're donating these funds, but some people want to have that, many people I'm finding out, want to have that extra step, take that extra step and have that experience of determining how those funds are going to be distributed, how they're going to impact the community, how they're going to support different areas of need. And I think that when you join Impact Austin, you have that framework that really allows you to take that journey, whether you've done it before or not. That's the beautiful thing about it, that these are resources and that are available to everyone, regardless of where you are in your path with philanthropy. I also think that for me, the grant making process is very, very important. And I think that unless you're volunteering through an organization like Impact Austin, it's difficult to know exactly what that entails. I am lucky that I had those opportunities through Impact Austin and with the Junior League of Austin, which was actually Junior League of Boston at this point. We're going way back here. That was my first experience joining a grant making committee. To me, I learned about the process, about how to maximize your resources as an organization as you look at these things. I found areas of interest. I learned how to monitor progress, how to evaluate, how the impact that we were having, track results all of those things, I'm not sure I would have had an opportunity to learn if I had not been a part of this organizations like it that offer that opportunity. And it also led me to the role that I have now. And Heather, I wanted to hear from you too on this, because I think to me, those are some of the key aspects. And I wanted to hear what you think.
No, I really resonate with those, Lillian. It's funny, just for everyone on the call, I'm not a member of Impact Austin, but that's why it's kind of cool for you to be here too, because I am such a fan of the organization. And I know I've even got employees here from Silicon Labs. And I really encourage it as an opportunity for you, kind of that bridge, right? Because, Lillian, you just touched on the fact that it's been such an educational experience. It's taught you so much. It helped lead you to your career. And I think one of the things that being part of a collective giving organization can help you do is understand both sides, understand the nonprofit side and understand the funder side. The
So
example I
important.
always give, yeah, it's like both, right?
So important. Yeah.
One of the things I always, and you might get this question, Lillian, too, at work, when we're working with our employees. I've had quite a few, I'll tell you, engineers are very specific and they want to know how things work. And I've had sometimes engineers say to me like, well, I want to look at their financials, XYZ nonprofit that I'm thinking of giving to, and I want to see how much is going directly to the mission and how much is going to administration. And I always kind of giggle a little bit to myself. And I say, well, you should understand that when you're funding a nonprofit, funding administration drives the mission.
Yeah.
And let's kind of unpack what that means. So if you then see on somebody's, Guide Star report that like 100% is going to, or 90% is going to program services, that might be a direct service provider organization. And that's how they carry out their mission. Or you might look at an organization and say, wow, 50% of their money gets passed on to other organizations. Well, they could be a grant making organization, and that's where their power is. So by being part of a collective giving organization and starting to get into that, hey, here's how we make grants and here's how we learn more about nonprofits, you start to understand that it's not just a binary issue of money going to the cause, money going to administration. You start to understand the complexities, right, of how important it is to fund organizations that know what they're doing and are making an impact in the community. And you learn that when you're part of a collective giving organization or when you're joining a board.
Absolutely. I think that is so important. And especially when you're thinking long-term, when you're thinking about the impact that you're having, having a ripple effect that could go on long-term. Those are such important considerations, Heather. And I'm so glad that you talk more about that, because I think part of what being part of an organization like Impact Austin, being part of an organization that you're passionate about, is to think about the long-term effects. And a lot of that has to do with the board. A lot of that has to be with the leadership of the nonprofit partners that you work with. There's so much going on there but I think at the end of the day, you want a long-term lasting effect. And you want to be able to be a part of an organization's power to do so in the community. And you also want to be able to contribute in that way to organizations that you care about.
Thank you. And we don't call this bite-sized learning because it's long. So we are coming close to time. So I just have one final question that came in from Paulina. She was asking, what are 3 key questions that you should ask before accepting a board position? And I think you guys kind of touched on this a little bit, but I think that that's a really great question to kind of wrap this up for us.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Okay. So I would say top 3, and there's a lot of them, but the questions I always ask are, what is the role of the board? I.e., what is the status of the board? Is it a working board, meaning that like it's an organization with like maybe only 1 or 2 employees and the board itself is going to be doing a lot of the administration work of the organization? Or is it a governance board where there is a staff and then the board is more helping with the strategy and the direction? Or at a really big level, is it a foundational board, which is more of that grant giving? So understanding where, the question 1 is, what type of board are you? How are you staffed? What's the expectation of the work that the board will do? Number 2 is, I think time commitment is really important. You don't want to overpromise and underdeliver based on your time. And number 3 is understanding the give or get structure. Most organizations, not all, but most organizations will have a financial and or you get donations from someplace else on behalf of the organization as part of your it's part of your contribution and being a member of the board. Absolutely, this should not be a limiting factor. I feel very strongly about that, but I think being aware of how the board is structured from both what's the work you're going to be doing, what's the time commitment, and what's the financial commitment is super important. Lillian, how about you?
Absolutely. And you hit the first, the main questions right there. I agree with all of that. And I'm thinking of some of the meetings that I've had when discussing the opportunities to join a board. And I would say, in addition to those 3 questions, which I think are really key, I also ask about what are the challenges that the organization is facing now? What are the opportunities? What other partnerships do you have in the community? How are you? People say play well with others. I say more like which organizations you're partnering with. Where are you in the sector or the ecosystem of where you're trying to have an impact? And I asked about the mission. What are the different programs that are supported by the organization that where you're hoping to have an effect on a particular issue on a particular mission? And Paulina, as you know, I've known Paulina through the New Philanthropist, so I definitely appreciate the work that they're trying to do in encouraging and supporting diversity in boards. And I think that that's something that is very important to me as well. I was born and raised in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and as a Latina woman, it's important to me that those conversations are happening. Even if there's work to do, I think that it's so important that those conversations are happening. I know they are happening at Impact Austin, so it's something that makes me very proud also to be part of the organization. So, but Heather, I think that we should laminate the questions. Those are the ones that I think that's where you start, and I think that as the conversation continues, those are, I'm suggesting additional questions to go with those as well. So that,
and honestly, Lillian, I know we're finishing up, but I really want to highlight in like +1. I know that they say, my friends at Google say, your conversation around DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. I think it's extraordinarily important for any nonprofit or executive director to be thinking about the diversity of their board, because you're only going to be able to speak to your larger mission if you have a diversity of viewpoints, lived experiences, and backgrounds. And that's a great one. It's like, I think your other one is when you're going into a board is, what is their strategy? Does everybody on the board look the same?
Absolutely.
And if they do they have a strategy to fix that? Or if they don't, what's that conversation? And I would say that's kind of that last little point I want to say is, don't be afraid to ask hard questions. That's what boards need to do.
Agreed. Absolutely. Completely agree with you, Heather. That's such a good point.
You teed it up and I just did that.
Thank you guys both for spending time with us this afternoon. There were a few additional questions in the chat, so we are going to answer those offline and send an email out to everybody with those answers. Thank you, Heather and Lillian, again for spending time with us this afternoon and for all you do to support the community here and beyond. And thank you everyone else for joining us. If you have additional questions too, please feel free to email us at contact@impactaustin.org. And we also want to invite you to join us on September 20th for Impact Austin Women Leaders event to learn about the challenges and opportunities in Central Texas from some of our community partners. And we're kicking off our recruitment season, so we hope you'll renew your membership for the coming year or join us. And if you have any questions about that, please visit our website, impactaustin.org. Thank you all again for joining us and hope to see you at the Women Leaders event on September 20th. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.